Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Well, how we doing, folks? Always nice to see you folks. Monday night makes for, you know what, a more desirable Monday. I'm sure everybody loves their Mondays like I do, and I'm hoping yours wasn't so bad. Needless to say, it was a great weekend. If you got out fishing, holy smokes, that wasn't a lot of rain that we received today. So hopefully you got all the fishing done this weekend. I'm not sure what the weather is like all across Canada, but I do believe there's a bit of a heat wave coming this week out west. We're going to dry up, believe it or not. We had a month's worth of rain in the course of 24 hours. So we got whatever rain we needed, at least I hope we did, and that'll soften up the ground, fill up the rivers and lakes, make the fish a lot happier, and us anglers, because it's going to give us more water to fish. Steve Shaw's in the house. How you doing, Steve? Richard Dunlop's here. Hi, CFNers. Absolutely. Mike Moran's. I got to look at that video, dude, but I'm glad I got your response and your address, so I appreciate that. Nick's in the house. How you doing, Jeremy? Corey's always with us. Always nice to see you, Corey. Ed McKenzie. Yeah, baby. Chase and I Charters. Capitan. Tony's in the house. Lloyd's here. How you doing, Lloyd? Hope everybody's been busy with the CFN Fish Up, man. We've had some really cool entries, and what we love to see, of course, are the kids' entries. This one in particular that we shared last Tuesday for Tourney Tuesday, and we're going to be doing Tourney Tuesday again this Tuesday. But I mean, I tell you, it just warms the heart to see three girls out fishing the CFN Fish Up, and I believe they caught multiple species. Ava up there is holding a pike that Samantha and Brooklyn are pointing to. I believe Samantha got the carp, but anyway, there's at least 3 species caught. But the picture that makes it all worthwhile right there. So big shout out to Jesse and of course Ava and Rocky for getting out, spending some time on the water, and of course participating in the CFN Fish Off. We can't thank you enough for that. Klassen, how you doing, buddy? Mark Wolf's in the house. Tony. Hey, Scotty, you won't believe what happened today. I want a giveaway. I was going to say, my answer was going to be, you entered a giveaway, but you won. Well, congratulations to you, Tony. Was it a boat? Was it a fishing trip? Was it a date with Jim? No, or all of the above. Just kidding. Adrian, how you doing, buddy? We need the rain. Absolutely, we do, Jeremy. 100%. Remember to share. Yeah, baby. Absolutely. And of course, Lloyd, not bad. Finally got to get fishing. It was nice to see you out on the water, Lloyd. I didn't see any of your pics, so maybe tonight when I'm done this, I will take a stab at looking at some of the stuff. Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. That is the future of fishing right there. 100%, my friend. Couldn't have said that any better. And you know, one thing I want to do while we got a second. I want to congratulate young Bowen here. Bowen, I believe this is his first time out fishing. And he's there with his dad, Bubba, and of course his granddad, Gary. This is how it all starts right here. Not only did he catch his first fish, but he caught it all here. Watch the thumbs up. Look at the thumbs up. Oh, I love the thumbs up. That thumbs up is awesome. But they were in 40 feet of water, roughly, and he managed to set the hook these two on his own, And with his dad's help and his granddad's help, managed to reel it in. And I'd say he's pretty impressed with what he caught.
Thumbs up.
I love the thumbs up. That thumbs up is awesome. So congratulations to Bowen. Nice to see you catch your first and second fish all in one. It's memories like that hopefully will pass along the passion and get us all interested, get the next gen all interested in fishing. That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Klassen, all is good. All is great. Fish TV. Oh, you got the Fish TV prize pack. Right on. They picked you. Well, congratulations, Tony. Well deserved, as you always are at the top of everybody's list when it comes to the giveaways. If they're out there, you can sniff them out, I'll tell you. All last week I couldn't get out because of high winds on the Oregon coast, and I fished the jetty. Well, either way, if you're out fishing, that's what it's all about. Joe, couldn't agree more. Happy Monday. It's a pleasure to share time with you folks. And of course, we've got Jim, Lawrence, and Jay coming up, but we always have a few announcements. And one announcement that I do want to share that we're going to be talking about later on is just in case folks haven't, if you've been out on the rivers, you've been targeting your steelhead or any trout species or char species for that matter. But if you've been out on the rivers, because CFN or Ivano, he's been down, and if you know Ivano, he's always on the Credit River. And he shared this video with me. And of course, the reason we're going to be talking about it with Jay is it's one thing to catch these invasive species. And of course, they're all undesirables. And you can see the pile there. So we posted it as a Monster Monday feature. And the reason for it is we want to just enlighten folks that when you do catch them, there is a proper way to release these fish or destroy them. Because of course we don't want them in our public waterways. But what I found so interesting was the fact that there was this many, and Ivano has been out for the better part of a week or so, and has every time he goes out, he says he catches at least 200. So, and he's not targeting them. He's simply throwing an inline spinner, or maybe a chatterbait, or I don't know, some kind of reactionary bait that has a lot of rattle in it. But either way, it is attracting these fish, and sometimes he snags them. Sometimes they actually go after the bait. But regardless, he's got a small pile there. So we're going to find out from the help of Jay how we go about reporting this. Do we need to bring it to light? Is it something we need to talk about? Is it something we even need to discuss? And when it comes to disposing these fish, how do we do that? Is it a matter of just throwing them in a hole or taking them to a landfill? What are some of the things we need to do? So if you have any questions about that, if you're experiencing a spike in your lamprey eel catches, you're going to find out a lot. Jay's going to share some information because it is an interesting subject. It's something that the result might not be that desirable when folks hear how you're supposed to deal with these fish. But either way, we want to educate you. We want to point you in the right direction. So if you do catch them, Jay's going to help us sort of walk the line on what it is we're to do. So I'm looking forward to that. Lawrence is on location. He hasn't shown up yet, so I'm not really sure where he's at. But needless to say, I'm looking forward to where he ends up. And of course, yes, if you are a Canadian and there was no hockey on, there was no basketball, I think maybe the Jays were playing. I'm not really sure. But congratulations to Nick Taylor. To say we're proud as a Canadian is an understatement when you have an achievement like this before you. It's the first time in 70 odd years that a Canadian has won the Canadian Open. That's kind of hard to believe, but yeah, it's been a while since a Canadian has won it. It was a 72. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a 72-foot or yard putt to win. So of course it was extremely dramatic. It was on the fourth playoff hole, and it was starting to rain, so it really could be anybody's game at the end of it. The weather conditions had changed dramatically, and it could have had some serious effects. So what did our good buddy Nick do? He got it done, and he got it done in a hurry, but also in dramatic fashion. It was unbelievable. On the boat, heads cut off. Yeah, as I said, we will get to all that, Ed, in regards to what we're going to do. You've had a lot of experience out in the big waters when it comes to lamprey and how we're supposed to deal with that. Lamprey eel is protected. You can't dispose of them. It might be in certain areas, not in the Great Lakes. It isn't. It is a very undesirable species. A lot of money is spent, Corey, to keep them out of the Great Lakes. So not sure where they'd be protected, but the lamprey out this way are an invasive species and have to be dealt with appropriately. And UFC, yep, 6 wins. Jeremy, UFC, absolutely. 72 feet 6 inches. Thanks, Joe. It was an awesome moment, Mark. I couldn't agree more. 4-putt territory for I was thinking about that too, Joe. Like, these guys were putting on a clinic when it came to golf. There's no way, like, there's just no way I could be close to that caliber. They are absolutely not protected in Canada and on the Great Lakes. Absolutely. It may be a little bit different where you are, Corey, but here they are an extremely undesirable fish. So we do everything but protect them. Eve, always nice to see you, my friend. Oh, yeah. So if you subscribe to, I would probably say TikTok, Instagram, may have been on Facebook too. They have a view of his buddy who runs up with the big bottle of champagne, and how he gets tackled is quite impressive. Kudos to the Canadian security. It was nice to see they were on par, even though it was a Canadian event. It was a big deal. Their focus was razor sharp, and even though they were wrong, it was fun to watch, needless to say. But yeah, he went for a bit of a tumble. Sparkus, always a pleasure to see you. We are going to get right to the announcements, as we always do. There is not much that I want to announce that is new. So if you've heard all this before, I apologize. If you're coming, I apologize. If you're not, please have a look at Horwood Lake Lodge. We're looking forward to seeing you August 14th to the 19th. Get your butt booked in a bed. It is priority number one before we open it up to other communities. Let's just say that. But if you are a CFN member, you watch this on the regular, we'd love to see you at Horwood Lake Lodge for the 5th annual CFN retreat. And if you need a reason to go, here it is right here.
If you guys are looking to catch a lot of fish, go to a location that has a lot of fish.
That's a good idea.
That's the best idea I've ever come up with.
Good word of advice.
I need a Nobel Peace Prize for that.
So I hope we see you in August. As I said, August 14th to 19th, www.horwoodlakelodge.com is where you need to go. You need to get a hold of Doris and Warren. Warren and Doris are awaiting your call. If you are looking to be a part of the 5th annual CFN retreat, please get a hold of them so that we can get your butt booked in a bed. And of course, it would not be a CFN Live without talking about Camp McIntosh. And we love our Camp McIntosh.
Where are you going, Don?
Camp McIntosh.
Yeah, baby.
Camp McIntosh, September 22nd to the 24th. Love to see you there. As I said, it's late enough in the year that I think folks will have a wide open calendar. At least I'm hoping. This one is really booking up quickly. So, as I said, I can't give you any better or more solid advice than make sure to reach out to Tracy and Andre. Make sure you phone, do whatever it takes to get your butt booked in a bed so we can see you at the second annual OFC Nation retreat. Moose is going to be there. I'm going to be there. Mikey's going to be there. And, of course, Jeff Richard. It is OFC Nation, baby. It is a cooperative effort between OFC and CFN. And if it's anything like last year, it's going to be an awful lot of fun. Got this off the dark web. Before we introduce Jim, I got to ask him about this. I'm not sure what he's talking about, but have you ever seen three fish that engaged before? That is incredible. But we will get Jim to talk about that and a whole lot else right after a word from our sponsor. Stay tuned. Big Jim's in the house. Okay. Well, listen, while you're napping, like, did I just dream this up? This came from the dark web, Jim. What has got these fish so engaged? Oh, is that it?
Can't show you though.
Oh.
Oh yes, I can. I can. Yeah, I got a bunch of the new SLXs in.
Oh,
And
nice.
a couple of guys have asked me on Facebook, how do I know I'm getting a new one? The lettering on the end is not blue, it's silver.
There you go.
And it's the A series. And I got to show you the biggest thing that they've added to this reel is silent tune. And I don't know whether you can see this, but what it does, quite often with the spools, if you loosen your cast control off too much, they'll really be able to fling stuff and have the line come out real easy, which is when people get in trouble.
Yeah.
Sometimes the spool will start to go back and forth because they loosen it too much.
Okay.
And it makes the reel really noisy to use. And it's not good for the reel. So do you see on that there what they've done at the sides of the spool? See those two little red springs?
Yeah.
Those springs are so fine that they don't let the spool go back and forth. And that's silent tune, and it's ours. It's patented. You know, that's what these guys sit and think up all day. But that's one one of the things with it. I like it. I really like the flat reels. I like the looks of that.
Yeah.
It's got the Hagani body, so it's a one-piece body, so the reel can't move.
Right.
That's why people get out and they get a big fish or they get snagged and they're pulling and they can't turn the handle because the reel's screwed together. It's pieces. There's no pieces here. It's a frame that's solid with everything screwed onto it. So that doesn't happen. It's one of them, one of those things out there. Only weighs 6.9 ounces too, which for a low end bait cast reel, 6.9 is not much.
Now,
I
Jim,
remember when the top end ones, Scotty, I think it was the Beastmasters, they were like 13.9 ounces or something. You know, that's a long time ago, but it just shows you how far that they've come with the reels.
now in regards to how far they come, Jim, and you're 100% right. I think one of the first bait casters I got, I don't even know what the name was. It seemed like an awfully big unit. It was fairly new. You know, you would see all the bass pros down in the States using them. So like everything else, we gravitated and we bought them, whether we needed them or not. But the technology in the DC, a lot of folks are really in tune to the fact that this DC is available at an SLX price level. Their biggest concern is, and I'm hoping for their sake, Shimano didn't take any of the technology they had in the last SLX DC away.
No, it's a thing. In fact, I dealt with a young lad last night who had me on the phone with his dad, the dad says to me on the phone, he says, "Is this Big Jim?" And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "Really, eh?" Like he was shocked that a kid would contact me on Facebook and I would engage him, you know.
Wow.
But let me see if I can find it. It was pretty cool to walk a young lad through a purchase like that and have him. Yeah, I don't know. Dang, I don't know where. I might even be ready. I get so much stuff on here quite often. I dump it.
Yeah. Well, you probably have to.
Yeah, it's just when you're trying to find stuff. So he buys it, and then he messaged me several times last night. He got out to the lake with it, and he talked to me. I told him go watch the video JP did about not getting it too loose because then it can go back and forth, like I explained. Which now the that silent tune will fix that. It'll be out of there. Please be here. Yeah, I must have dumped it out. Dang. But I went back and forth with him about 10 times after he got home. He got it spooled, and then he went down to the lake, or he went down to actually Big Rito, just on the shoreline. And he sent me a video of him casting it. And while he's casting it, he's saying to me, "See, I'm not killing it like you said." And he wasn't, he wasn't like trying to, young kid, strong, whatever else fired. He's just doing it perfect, everything else. And he holds it up and it just comes to a perfect stop with no backlash. And he turns he's got the phone and he goes like this in it. He was so happy. And that's so cool to be able to do things like that. He was pretty impressed. He was pretty impressed. Yeah, and he bought a Curado DC. So that's the reel's got a lot more features to begin with. But.
And this is the thing that you try to explain to people. Of course, when it comes to the higher end and high echelon technology and products that are available at Shimano, we got JP, we got a host of others that can talk about that. Our biggest thing down at our CFN community is the fact that Shimano has really listened to the entry level angler, and when it comes to the technology that they have available for us entry level anglers, holy smokes! And the SLX DC is no slouch.
Well, if you go to the website too, there's lots of videos there. You go to their social media pages, like Shimano, Fish Shimano North America. There's the videos that are on there. There's all kinds of them. You can watch them. They'll show you how to do any of the rods and reels when the stuff comes out new. JP does them. JP's like our gearhead.
He is.
He can tell you. He just remembers how many ball bearings were in a reel 15 years ago. Stuff like that. He's really on top of it.
He is Shimano's version, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever. He is Shimano's version of Rain Man when it comes.
That's what Mercer nicknamed him.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah. No,
he's the Rain Man of Shimano. There is nothing that he doesn't know about products. In fact, it would have to be longer than a 30-minute segment if we had JP on here. If we were talking about Shimano
per feature.
Yeah, we'd have to say sorry, Jay, sorry, Lawrence, and sorry, Jim. We have no time for you. JP took the whole 2 hours.
But there's lots of different gear ratios too. There's 6-1, 7-2, and this is I always buy the highest that you can. This is 8-1, and I'm just 8-2. I'm just big on high end reels. I can always turn the handle slower.
Yeah.
you can't turn it fast enough sometimes. And I know for 3/4 of the fishing world, it's irrelevant, but there's certain things I could never back up on because of, just the level I brought myself to for having everything perfect. It sort of took a lot of the guesswork out, a lot of the stuff. And with the different gear ratios, it's certainly true.
I've also seen too, Jim, over the years with braid and the technology that goes into braid, these reels are able to get smaller because of that advancement. I would say, am I wrong to say that probably 90% of folks who use bait casters are using it with braided line?
I would think, yeah, braided line or fluorocarbon. There's no doubt about that. Fluorocarbon, I think you might even be seeing a little bit more of a resurgence in fluorocarbon.
Can't imagine why.
I often say it's that thing like, I don't like to think that fish learn, as you know.
Yep.
Learn like we would. And I don't believe that they really do. But if you look at fish, you've heard me talk about this so many times before. Does a fish know what fishing line is? Not a chance. He or she is not that smart. Not even close. Not even in the ballpark. Like fish is pretty not, the sharpest fin in the toolbox. It's see they're just mesmerized. I stared them down.
How does he know that we can't learn? How does he know that?
They all look like they're kind of dull.
Yeah.
They got the homer look on their face. But, you've heard me talk about this with braid so often. Guys say, well, I don't like to use braid because the fish can see it. Okay, well, even if the fish see it, then it's something that's maybe not natural. It looks different, could take away. Who knows that it doesn't attract the fish because they see it? Because I've told you the story about the muskie watching the dacron. I mean, this fish is this far from the dacron. It's a big 30-pound muskie. And it's going like this at the line. It's looking back and forth, watching it go by. Here comes the lure. Just eats the lure. It's my buddy Donnie. I've watched that happen right 10 feet behind the boat. It was the coolest thing.
Unreal.
Coolest thing in the world to watch that happen. But then people think that the fish can't see, can see their line. So what do? They get out the Sharpie and they blacken their line down. So you blacken your line down, then you do a survey next week. I've done it at the Sportsman Show, done this to say, first off the bat, I ask, hey, what if everybody had to pick one color? Would it be like black, white, chartreuse? Because it's going to be one of those standard solid colors, eh? Mm-hmm. And inevitably, I can get them all, the vast majority to agree on black because they've all caught lots of fish on black lures.
Right.
And then I do the bit about pencil and the, so why would you make it black if you think that's the thing the fish can see the best?
True enough.
But once again, the fish aren't too smart, so it doesn't make a difference,
Sparkus is saying too, and of course, when I said 90%, these are the folks that I wasn't including in that because mono and top water, they go hand in hand. Yes, absolutely. Ed floating mono 100%. That would probably be outside of the fluorocarbon, which I could see being used as well. Mono for top water when it comes to a bait caster would be
braided line's the best thing in the world for top
there
water.
You go. All right, you've heard it from the man himself.
You stick every fish,
and
you need to use a rod that compensates for the lack of stretch.
Right.
That's the whole thing. You have to be disciplined when to set the hook. That's why you see all the guys in the States when they're fishing buzz baits, the rods that they use are like crankbait rods almost.
Yeah.
They have a lot of flex in them, and that way the fish can draw the lure back. And the same with the top water lure, fish have to get it. But when it comes to top waters, people often set the hook way before the fish gets it.
True enough.
So I missed it. I never felt the thing. Well, he didn't get it yet. He was just coming to get it. And you see the water, and you set the hook. When you feel the fish pulls when you set the hook, and you can get away with that so much better with braid because it's instant.
You taught me that the one time that we were out together, the importance of letting that fish take the top water bait. I know it is, unfortunately, we all get excited and we see that boil. It happens, right?
Especially when they're frog fishing.
Yeah.
You see all these guys, that's the reason I like to use a white frog.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to show you something else too. Got to show you something else.
We got more surprises. There's no shortage of surprises.
I'm taking my buddy's advice.
Oh, high vis. Whoa, Jim. Whoa.
I'm stepping outside my comfort zone with that. I'll get rid of the box because that'll be going on a reel for the weekend for my frog. And I have no problem using yellow line frog fishing, none whatsoever. Because when you're fishing a frog and all that slop, they don't see the line. They're looking up. They're following what they're going to eat. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
They're following what they're going to eat.
Tony, the new fluorocarbon is Mastiff, and if you don't have Mastiff, yeah, if you're going to want to pick some of that up, and not just because it's a fluorocarbon. The technology that has gone into this, like this is when you tie a knot with this. And I had the luxury with Moose. You tie a knot, it won't let go. The line might snap, but there's no way that knot's going to let go because there are microscopic teeth within the fluorocarbon that dig in. The minute you tie it tight, there's the only way to get it off the hook is either
you can see the name of it right there.
Nano Armor.
Nano Armor, yeah.
Interesting. Wow. There's Moose. Oh, right on cue. There's Moose right there. When it comes to bait casters, is there a length that you prefer over others? Obviously, it depends on the type of fish and the presentation you're using. But like, is there a limit? Would you go no lower than say 7 foot with your rod length with a bait caster?
Yeah, I'm on that 7.2, 7.5. You know, like I went to a 7.11 for a pitching rod for a real heavy, dirty cover. Heaviest rod that I have. I can see it sitting in the corner here. It's 6 inches taller than anything else I've got. But that's 7.5, 7.6 on a lot of the rods. There's definitely an advantage for the fishing I would do to a longer rod. There's no offense or buts about it. I don't think you'll ever see them find an excuse to go back to short rods.
I'd have to
if
agree.
I'm talking wholesale, you might have somebody come up with one little technique or something. I know when we used to use the pistol grip rods in the beginning, they were awesome for casting under docks. If you could roll cast, and I only knew a couple of guys, including myself, that could do it. I could roll cast a spinnerbait underneath the dock, like 4, 5, 6 feet under a dock. And you know, I was good at it, but there's guys in the States, like I told you about when I fished with some of these guys, I'm just absolutely blown away at their ability to cast.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you fish 180 days a year.
100%. As I said, when you see the new bait casters come out, you I don't know, it may be just me, but I see them just getting smaller and smaller, more and more compact. And I often thought, you know, when they first came out, were they designed to be run with mono? Was braid even around? Did bait casters even, you know, gear their products towards braid?
I mean, when you look at how small the reels are now,
it really, like they used to be,
and that's a 150.
Yeah, they used to be a lot beefier when they first came out, and I don't know if braid was around. I know spider wire was one of the first ones to come out, and perhaps they had that, but it just seems to me that these reels are getting smaller and smaller based on the line technology.
Yeah, you'll see them do bigger reels, but it's for line capacity.
Yeah,
and a lot of people, like you see them introduced, like we've got, you know, like some bigger reels from Shimano now, like, you know, the Curado 300s and stuff like that, because guys want to use swim baits that are 8, 10, sometimes 12 inches long and weigh, you know, like some of them weigh 6, 8 ounces, and even more, some of them actually. And if you're going to use stuff like that, you have to have the proper equipment to throw. Not that you can't do with a smaller reel, it's just much more efficient. Like the reel's strong enough, you don't have to worry about that. But it's just more efficient when you use a bigger reel. It just seems to be more to hang on to.
Makes sense.
I'm really liking it. Yeah.
Tony, question: is there braid to Mastiff? I'm assuming you're thinking, is there a braid in the Mastiff line? No, there is not.
No,
Mastiff is strictly fluorocarbon. If you want the braid, Power Pro is the product you are looking for.
Yeah, and I think I don't believe it'll be in this package. I'm not sure, but it's going to be when it comes to North America. It's supposed to. The first thing that I heard, don't quote me on this, was 200 yards is what they would have in it. So you know, you got enough to fill a few reels up there. You know, some of the guys I know would have to put 200 yards on because they think they cast 400 feet. You know.
Yeah, it happens. Luke 65-pound Power Pro for your frog rod.
Yeah, buddy.
What would be the hardest you would go, Jim?
Right where he is, probably.
Yep.
Yeah, right where he is too. Yeah, yeah. I just picked up one small spool, 150 yards, a 50-pound test. You don't realize how strong 50-pound line is. Like, you got to remember, when I fished competitively, we had two spools of line. We had an 8 and a 20, and maybe a 25-pound big game, which big game is like cable, still is. I mean, that was, if we wanted to fish in trees or, be doing what they would, call punching now or something, they just changed the names, becomes more popular. Yeah. So, and I go sometimes and I wonder, even out the back here, some evenings, I inadvertently get a fish doing something on tackle I'm not really expecting to get them on or something. And I say to myself, how did I ever pull these fish out with 20-pound mono? Yeah. I'm fighting with 40-pound braid, and I know what I'm doing. And I'm having a hard time, you know what I mean? How did I ever get them out on mono?
And I know what I'm doing. I love that.
Like, I know when the fish eats the lure, he doesn't get to swim through the weeds for 4 or 5 feet with it before I set the hook.
Right.
Usually.
No, I hear you. Absolutely. Tony asked a great question, and I've seen many ways of doing this. But, Jim, how do you keep track of the test line you have on?
A lot of times I just put I have little stickers here.
Yep.
And they're really, really good little stickers. They stay on. And I'll put them on the reel seat, so they're out of the way. They don't get worn off. And you got to use, I like ballpoint pen the most. Quite often what I'll do is I'll put it, see where that little silver dot on the bottom of the handle is right there?
Oh, yeah.
I'll put it on there. Some guys put it on the bottom here, on the flat spot here. They put it here. But whatever. It's good to keep. See, that's why when I used to fish, we had bait casters. Everything had 20-pound test mono on it.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about putting those things on there. So it was pretty cool, though.
Now, I got a question for you. When it comes to longevity of braid, obviously, especially if you're using the high vis stuff, you will see it will fade after time. If it's fading, is it also decomposing? Is it breaking down?
Minutely.
Okay.
Like, I mean, we used to. I have guys out there. Even with braid, like if I'm doing something that I'm thinking it's important that I really need to be sure I catch every single fish, I'll retie. I mean, I have no problem retying consistently with braid or fluorocarbon. You watch me in the boat when you fished with me.
Yep.
You don't have to do it a lot, but you got to check for one thing. And as soon as I see anything or feel it, if I look at the braid and I see a few little pieces getting rough there, I cut off a 2, 3, 4 feet. Start over again. So, like for most of the time, it's not that hard to do. And there's a lot of things too, like when you're dragging a tube, say, in 30 feet of water in the St. Lawrence or Carolina rig or something, you really, really need to pay attention to your line because it's getting ground into the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
If you're fishing a frog, it's not the same. It's just up against plant and stuff like that. Maybe the odd tree, you keep a close eye on it.
Right.
But I'm big for retying. Like when I fish tournaments, the line on my rods was changed every night.
Every night. Oh, wow.
Unless I used a rod like 20 casts just to try something, I'd have a rod with us. Like there wasn't as many lures when we fished.
That's
so
true.
They just didn't have as many things. So like say I always had a rattle bait rig. So if I might have only taken 30 casts with it on a point or something, just check out a point quick or something, then I would check that. I might retie it, just take off 5-10 feet of line and away we go. But all our flipping rods and spinnerbait rods and stuff like that, we had them all measured out to about a cast and a half,
mm-hmm.
where the knot was on
mm-hmm.
the spool. So we're only changing the first maybe like 60,
right.
80 feet of line, and we'd have enough to retie a couple of times during the day. And for flipping rods, was not unusual for me to keep 4 or 5 in the boat. And when I had used it for, say, an hour or two, I would just put that one in the rod locker and pick up another one that was fresh. So I knew, instead of retying the time. And then at night, depending how much they were used, we'd strip off a few yards. Or in some cases, if we were really hammering them, we'd you could be respooling 4, 5, 6 reels at the hotel that night. So
Wow.
Yeah.
And absolutely. You would get a lot of life out of your line, your 20-pound Power Pro for 2 complete seasons.
that's incredible.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, as a tournament fisherman, I wouldn't even dream of that because you can't afford to lose a fish.
No.
But it's a different thing when you're, it's
Yep.
a complete different thing. Yeah.
I have one other question when it comes to line and bait casters. It isn't really talked about in a lot of, and I use open face, as you know. Can you put too much line on? Is there not enough? Is there a sweet spot when it comes to the amount of line that you should have?
Yeah, you want it like, people tell me, oh, it should be about 1/8 of an inch down on the spool. Well, it can't be 1/8 of an inch down on the spool. The spool's going to be half empty. Like when you look at the spool, there's not very much room.
Yeah.
On there. So if you want to take away 1/8 of an inch off that spool, you're not getting enough line on it.
Right.
But one thing you want to be sure that you don't do is you don't get too much line so it can rub. If you guys do that, they tell me they got a reel, and when he said always when I get close to the boat, I'm turning the handle, it gets rough because the line's starting to rub. You got too much line and it rubs around the spool. It'll rub on places, but only when the spool gets filled and it's up to the top, eh? But I'll keep it. I'll keep it just a little bit below the edge. If you get it up over it, it's also then the line is also going to rub on the reel,
Right.
and that's where it wouldn't normally have something rubbing against it. And when you cast, that friction of the line, there's a lot of things out there you got to look at when you're actually doing it. What's it doing? But if you have any thoughts of your line, change it. Put on new stuff. There's no offense, ors or buts.
So I had someone tell me something that was really interesting, and it makes sense. They would cast out with their bait caster, and when it would hit the water and it be in a rest position, they would take a marker and they would mark on the line so that they knew after a day of fishing, week of fishing, weekend, whatever, they would pull out the Power Pro or the braid to that line, cut it, and then retie from there.
Put on new line. Yeah, that's basically what we did when I told you we had, maybe 75 feet of line.
Yeah.
A little bit more. The spinnerbait rods, we might have more because when you start long bombing a spinnerbait, when we used to fish for smallmouths with spinnerbaits before people realized that spinnerbaits and smallmouths go hand in hand in open water.
Yeah.
There's nothing nicer than getting on a school of 3 or 4 pound smallmouths in open water. That's when they hit a spinnerbait, there's nothing like it. The impact, it's just wild. If you're burning it, and you've heard me talk about putting the rubber core sinkers on the shaft so we could get more weight to reel it faster and have it stay in the water.
Yeah.
Because we used to want to reel it so fast that the blades would pop it out of the water. And people say, "Oh, you reel it too fast; they can't catch it." Have you ever watched a fish swim? My God! You watch a fish swim, it'd be like if you dropped me off a building in Toronto, like the Bank of Montreal Tower. It's about the same speed. What do they call that? Terminal velocity? This is it.
Perpetual motionless. Now, George you did touch on colors, and I wanted to get back to that. So thanks, George, for rhyming these off. But his favorite colors, or at least it seems as if the more popular colors in his world is white, pink, and chartreuse for smallmouth. What are your go-to colors? Are they the same?
Yeah, you could all those colors. Like if I buy a jerk bait, it's usually chartreuse and purple. In that range, a lot of chartreuse and like shiny stuff. White's always a good choice.
Yeah.
I would think on the colors to me there are more for horizontal moving stuff. Like if you were going to fish, I was just making some stuff for a guy here. He wanted me to make him some spinnerbaits for smallmouths, and like something like this with a chartreuse head. Funny the way the chartreuse shows up yellow on a screen, eh?
Yeah, it does.
That's bright chartreuse.
Mm-hmm.
But you can hardly see it. But that with a chartreuse skirt on it or a white skirt, that type of stuff is what they want. I have a lot of guys have me tie bucktail on it for them because the skirts don't get wrecked. And when they're fishing, if there's any slop around, they like to pound the lures on the water to get it off, which is not good.
No.
They do that a lot, and the hair doesn't come off like a skirt does, because when the skirt comes off, then you got to, it's the spinnerbait's done unless you have a box there, and pull out another skirt and put it on. But yeah, no, those colors are all dynamite colors. But then if you're going to drag something on the bottom, it's probably going to be something, like greeny, dirty brown, blackish, something that's really, really dirty looking along the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And again, too, a couple of the biggest smallmouths I've caught in recent years, I caught with that Sparkle Shad Rhythm Wave on a Carolina rig in the St. Lawrence, and they were both over 6 pounds, like 3 minutes apart. We hadn't moved that far, and it was just a bunch of big fish in the area, and they're eating something that's white. Normally, you're not fishing with just white with some sparkle in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Normally, yeah, no, all those colors, they're all good colors for walleyes too. I sell a lot of bucktail jigs that are those colors, yeah. But I'm more on color, horizontal moving, getting them to react. If I'm fishing slow, I'm using something dirty and dark and just, that yucky type colors.
George is saying one pet peeve he has is that line does not match the amount of line required on a reel. And he was wondering, why is it perhaps that they put 300 yards on a reel of line?
You know why they used to do that? Because a Mitchell 300 probably held 300 yards of 8-pound test line.
That's the answer right there, as always. And yes, Ed McKenzie, clacking. I remember Al and Ron saying exactly that, clacking, burning a spinnerbait in their Western. It was awesome.
Oh, they used to have crimp sinkers on. And,
oh yeah.
It was just wild. There was another guy that used to put. He built his own. And he used to hang bell sinkers on the shaft, the head of the head. He'd put them on over the wire and then put the blades on.
Yeah.
Hang a bell sinker on. I don't know.
And that's the thing. Like you talk about like tackle that has been tested through time and has always been productive. And it was funny. We were out on Thursday and somebody was catching fish and somebody, that dreaded Daredevil. These are all baits that have just survived over time. Spinner baits is one. When it was first introduced, I think it's as popular as it was then as it is now to use. Jigs, obviously, hair jigs, they have been around forever. Spoons, that kind of thing. Like these baits, yeah, they might look a little bit different from when they first were brought into the industry, but I'll tell you, they produce fish no differently than they do.
I just realized sitting on my desk, that's that color I was telling you about, the sort of white with just a bit of sparkle in it.
Yeah.
And I've been using that. Had that on the back of a little stealth spinnerbait or chatterbait with a clear lip on it.
Yeah, Kevin, that's
how many fish came over the seawall out here last year with that. I don't know if I could count that high.
Kevin says, same reason hot dog buns come in packs of 8 and wieners you get 12, so you need to buy more. I like that.
Well, you used to get, you can get if you buy the big ones, you can get 6s. I know anything that has big in it. So.
Well, Jim, our half hour has just burnt away, much like you fishing with a spinnerbait. What have you got upcoming this week?
What have I got coming? I had a really good morning at the gym. I kick ass this morning. And had a great time on the weekend. I saw my buddies.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys some of the guys I hadn't seen for over 50 years.
And it was nice to see that many folks in that picture. And I don't mean.
Yeah. Oh, and there was a lot of guys had to leave. The funniest thing in the world was on Saturday, I was a wreck and going into a new building. I bit the bullet and I brought my cane with me just in case I had some stairs to negotiate or something,
Yeah.
And plus, there's a two-hour drive up there, which doesn't help me. I need a minute when I get out to get going, usually sometimes now. But it was so funny because Tommy Barber was there, and Brian Burant was the guy. And Brian had a stroke a couple of years ago, and it's really sad. He's very quiet, doesn't say too much. Was a fantastic athlete, just fantastic. You know what I mean? He was like just incredible. Well, he hung out with Patty Stokely, who played for the Rough Riders for years. Patty was there. He was one of the organizers.
Wow.
And he's just a great guy. But it was so funny because when it was time for him to go, Tommy drove out from Sandy Hill in Ottawa. they put out in the news or in the email that Brian needed a ride. So Tommy phoned him and said, "I'll pick you up. You know, can you get downstairs, whatever?" And he met him at the front door and whatever else. And he says to Brian, he says, "Okay," he says, he can only stay for about 45 minutes. And he told Brian, it's like, eat quick because we're going. When they got there, right? It was funny. So we had a chat. We got the pictures. And Tommy shoos him. He says, "You get started because by the time you get out to the front, I'll be done here. I'll run out, get the truck, and come up to the front and get you." Eh? And Brian's taking too long. He grabs my cane off the table. And he goes and he's poking Brian with it. He says, "It's okay. I have a cane. I can do this." And like,
That's hilarious.
but these were guys I grew up with as kids. Like we learned about life, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was so cool to see all these guys. And I thought it was really cool when Patty Stokely got up there and he was talking, and he was saying too about how cool it is. Like guys came from California, Vancouver, a couple from the States, 3 or 4 from Toronto, and it was so funny because he got up there and he says, "You know, we're all looking so old except for that," and he points at me.
Oh, geez.
And I said, "No, I'm the oldest one of the bunch too, because you know I was in the 7-year course in high school, right?"
Wow.
So not the 4 like everybody else. We had to stick around. We were having so much fun.
I remember that. Who wanted to?
But we just had a wondrous time, though. It was the best couple hours I've had in a long time.
Right
and
on.
like I said, you know, these were guys we grew up with. We learned about life together.
Yeah.
There was so much that we all experienced together as a bunch.
And I'm sure have a heck of a lot of stories.
Like I said in the thing, though, I said I'm still trying to learn how to dribble a basketball. I could never get the knack of that.
You and me both.
Volleyball, I was great.
Yeah.
Hockey, look out.
Yeah.
Behind the school, that was good.
White men can't jump. That's what was always said to me when I was in school, and it was true. It was so true. They made a movie of it. I have one favor to ask, Jim, before you leave it.
Sure.
Our beloved Terry Snyder is celebrating his 19th birthday. So to Terry from Jim and all of us.
19.
No, I'm just kidding.
Thought you were I mean, he looks to.
Yeah,
Is he legal yet? He's so young. I mean, he knows how to catch fish too. That's scary. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Terry. Happy birthday to you.
Right on, Jim. Listen, thanks for spending yet another Monday with us. As you always do, you bring so much to our community, and we can't thank you enough, my friend.
I just got a text from Santa Claus.
Okay.
That's what I did. I took my eldest daughter, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Her in the phone, her name is Santa Claus, not Jennifer.
Okay.
So when the kids are bad, I tell them, "Do you want me to phone Santa Claus?" And I click on it and show them.
I hope they don't watch this.
Oh, they're like, no.
Oh, good.
Both are still too young.
That delay had hang time.
It works though. Boy, it just goes from mayhem to. That's why I've never had to use the Valium dispenser on the wall. With the little hammer and the glass to break in case I need it. I just pull out that phone with Santa Claus.
Oh, dear Lord. Jim, as always, buddy, thanks so much for your time. Yeah.
You can see it.
We need the rain. Yes, Santa. Absolutely.
So Jennifer's gotten up and below Mattawa there. They've gotten like 5 inches of rain in the last couple of the days. We've probably gotten about 2 here, and we're supposed to get about 2 more tonight.
Yeah.
But I talked to the construction guys here. It's not dry here. It's not even close.
Oh, no, eh? Well, good
Because
to
we're
know.
all out there digging, you know. But
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
complain about. Anyways, I'd like to go.
Have a great week, my
Take
friend.
care, kiddies. Be safe.
Lawrence, right after this word.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
Lawrence Gunther in the house.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
Now, I was expecting you to be on remote somewhere. It sounded like you were on your way somewhere.
Oh, just ducked out for this session at the Indigenous Gathering Center just down the road from me here. I got an email from a friend of mine saying, "Hey, Lawrence, you might be interested in this. There's going to be a guest speaker. She's an Indigenous artist, and she does art with fish scales. Not the weighing scales, but the actual scales from fish."
Have you got anything you can show us?
I wish I could have snuck some samples out. She had bags of and jars of different tinted fish scales that she was circulating around, and some artwork. Basically, the scales are taken off. She doesn't boil them. She just puts them in warm water and to clean them, to get the slime off them. She said otherwise they deteriorate and they smell really bad. Well, we know that, but she said don't boil them, otherwise they split. But once they're cleaned up, they're really thin. They're really sort of bendy. And then she puts them into different dyes, blueberry dye, other things to dye them. And she said they'll dry really fast if you separate them. But if you don't separate them, they take hours to dry. And then you got some that are miscolored and so on. So she dries them quick, doesn't take long. And then she glues them together into different shapes. And she's making 3-dimensional art, like flowers and pedestals and butterflies and moose and deer and bear and all sorts of different sort of 3-dimensional art. So I took a charge of it because, normally bead, I can't feel the different colored beads, right? I mean, it's beautiful. Bead work is beautiful. But this is actual 3-dimensional art made out of fish scales. And when she glues them together and creates these sort of towers and cones and shapes, they're quite strong. It's pretty cool stuff. So she's the Indigenous consultant for the National Gallery of Canada here in Ottawa. Okay. She was a winner of an art award not so long ago and most promising young up and coming artist in 2014. She comes from Alberta, from Fish Lake, where her dad, she said, don't call him homeless, but he lives in the wilderness and he fishes and he doesn't have a phone and that's what he does. He just goes out and catches fish and he feeds his family, feeds his community. It's all white fish. And that's where she gets her scales. And she goes back there as much as possible. Here's an interesting little tidbit of information.
That's not interesting enough. Holy shit. Wow.
But when she said, and this caught my interest for sure as a conservationist. She said her dad knew when the fish were spawning because the shape of the scales on the fish changed. And she said when the scales sort of popped up a little bit, he knew they were spawning and he stopped fishing for a few weeks. Because he said he knew that, it's important to let the fish complete their spawning cycle. Otherwise,
okay, I agree. I 100% agree. But would he know this because of the time of year? Like I don't know.
Time of year. But then when in the spring or whenever these different species of fish are spawning, he knows by the time of the year. But then when exactly do you need to stop? So as soon as he noticed this subtle shift in the scale shape, he would stop.
I've never heard of that.
Me neither. That's pretty cool. That's traditional knowledge, right? And has a scientist verified that? Maybe no one's asked a scientist to verify that, or maybe someone has, some obscure, undergraduate research assistant has checked this out and wrote a paper about it, and no one's ever read it. But it's this is quite often the way science gets its direction. They get these ideas from people who spend a lot of time in the outdoors and say, oh yeah, everyone knows that. And then scientists go, really? And then they go and do all their research and it turns out to be true. But she said this is pretty common knowledge amongst the fisher folk from her community.
Okay, maybe from their community. I've never heard of that. I've never ever heard of that. Colors, sometimes shapes can be indicative of fish spawning, but never have I ever heard about the scales. That's interesting.
The shape of the scale, yeah. And these are white fish. That's what her dad fishes for, is white fish. So,
well, you listen. I mean, we have a lot of folks that are listening in here, and I challenge you that at late winter when we're catching whitefish and they're getting ready to spawn, it'd be really interesting if you folks find a tendency for their scales to change. It'd be great if we could see it for ourselves. This is a first. I've never heard of this. Wow.
No, I tell you, and she just gave this very humble presentation, and there was a lot of. My wife counted. She said there was about 35 people in the audience. Mixed culture, a lot of Indigenous people there, a lot of Indigenous women, you know, and a lot of people from other cultures as well. So it was respectful, and it was well received. And who would have thought, like, you know, go hear a woman talk about making art with fish scales, right?
So outside of the obvious, like, would there be somewhere we would be able to go to see some of her work?
She gives it away. She says, you know, she doesn't need the money. She just likes to see it, you know, move around. And she says, you know, what gives her a thrill is how far it travels. Where does it go? You know, and a lot of her art's goes around the world. So she said that's what gives her enjoyment. But she said their community is the only community in the world that does this, that actually collects fish scales, cleans them, dries them, tints them, and then creates art out of them. No other community anywhere in the world does this. It's unique to Alberta, the Fish Lake First Nations community, and the Beaver First Nation community, all the First Nations community in that part of Alberta.
And I can't imagine the amount of time and effort that goes into putting one of her masterpieces together. Because let's be honest, I mean, fish scales, depending on the species, can be extremely small. Regardless, like this is an intricate, you know, operation to be able to put this stuff together and have it hold, and then she doesn't charge anything. Like,
no, she doesn't. She said she would charge, and she has received money in the past, but she said she doesn't have the time to make that, you know, do it that often. She does it a lot, and then she just gives it away because it's more of a hobby for her, and it's just a way for connecting with her father and her children. Her children are now she has 4 children, they're doing it as well, and she's just proud that this is something totally unique to their part of the world, right? This is, you know, they can claim, hey, no one else does this. So yeah, I think it's interesting news, you know, some good news coming out of Canada. Yeah.
There's a few folks in the comments here that have noticed a little bit of a change. Corey's talking about scales on salmon and steelhead. They do not pop out on them. We go by the color on the fish. It's totally different in the salmon and steelhead. And that is quite possible, Corey. But George Morgan chimes in and says, breeding male lake whitefish develop Neptuo tubercles. I'm probably saying that wrong. On at least 3 rows of scales above the lateral line during the spawning season.
Wow, there you go. Good job.
You know, and this is why I love doing this, because not only do we have great guests with a whole host of knowledge with you three, but we have folks like George and everyone else that is sharing what they're seeing out in their fishery. And this is something I never knew. I never knew this. This is interesting, really interesting. Mm-hmm. What else do you have, my friend?
Well, okay. So Saturday we did our another one of our Get Ready for Fishing events with Bluefish Canada. We were our host was Ontario Power Generation Group in Cornwall. We set up at the Visitation Center there. We had registration for this event, so you had to go online to register prior to the event. We weren't turning people away at the door. But it sold out. We weren't selling tickets; it was free, but It was fully registered within 4 days. So we had 180 people registered for the event, and out of that, 165 people showed up, and it was mostly kids with their moms and dads, or uncles or aunts or grandpas. Why I'm talking about this, you know, is these were kids from all. Who thought Cornwall was so multicultural, right? We know there's the Mohawks of Akwesasne have 13 islands there, and a big chunk of the South Shore on the American side, and we had a lot of First Nations people show up as well to get ready for fishing put on by Bluefish Canada, and I thought that was quite interesting that the First Nation community showed up. But you know, just the name, Get Ready for Fishing, I think it just got their curiosity. We had people from, you know, Egypt and India and Yugoslavia and Ukraine and all through Europe and Asian countries, Japan, and all these people that have migrated as immigrants or refugees or seeking amnesty or whatever in Canada, a lot of them are located in Cornwall because the housing is affordable, and they were coming out, and then you had grandpas with their grandchildren and moms with their children, a real diversity of people. And so I'd ask, what kind of fish have you caught? What kind of fish do you like to catch? And quite often there was not a lot of, oh no, I catch this, that, and the other thing. Most of the kids have caught a panfish, and they wanted to catch more fish. They wanted to expand their knowledge on fishing. So they were in the right place for sure. We had 4 tables set up, and I'll just go through the tables. So we had fish handling and fish health, and thank you, Luke Gerard. I don't know if Luke's in tonight, but Luke showed up with his musky lures with the hooks off and his giant musky net and some musky gear. And then we had all the fish handling, fish extraction type hook extraction equipment on the table, and some information for Luke to give away on musky identification and some other things for him to give away at the table. And so he kept people entertained there with the stories of the muskie and just showing, how you have to have this equipment. If you're going to go after these fish, you need this big net. You need these, giant hook snippers and needle nose pliers and hook extractors and all that stuff, right? This is, if you're going to go after muskie, you need this equipment. So that went well. And then we had invasive species, how to identify, prevent, and report that. And we had all sorts of cards and pictures of goldfish and carp and tench. Tench are in the St. Lawrence River now, so we had pictures of tench and gobies and zebra mussels, and we were taking people who to enter the draw for Shimano gave us some spinning combos to give away. So people had to put their name into a bait bucket. So we said, okay, what's in this bait bucket, right? That was a good touch. We had fish ID and consumption. So we were given fish ID cards so people could understand the difference between a walleye and a sauger and a pike and a muskie and the different trouts and different panfish. All the panfish cards were gone, man. They took all the panfish cards disappeared for sure. And we were also giving out advice on fish consumption, right? So, we're not against harvesting fish. Just make sure you harvest the right ones and make sure you check to make sure they're safe to eat, especially with children and so forth.
And
then we had...
I think we need to jump on that when it comes to new Canadians, folks that have not fished in Canada. And of course, the Canadian Fishing Network was started by our good buddy Red for that reason. Because back when he came to Canada and his son was looking to go fishing, he didn't find a lot of information, especially when it came to fish identification and what have you, what to eat, how much to eat, what you can eat, what's in season, what's not in season. Very confusing for a new Canadian, especially if they don't speak the language. So great. That's a great first step. Great grassroots step right there. That's
just
great
to get them aware of that. Just
100%.
Get them aware of that and to know that, look, you've got children, babies, children, nursing mothers, it's super important that you check on these things. Absolutely.
100%.
And we had a fish and I took care of the fish and tackle table. So there we had, we're giving out Senkos with the little rubber bands and a barbless 3/0 circle hook. So this idea of a 3/0 circle hook, a perfectly flat circle hook without the bend out, without it curved out on the side. A kayak angler friend of mine in Toronto, he says this is the way to catch bass is with a circle hook. If you're going to wacky rig Senkos, you don't have to set the hook. You don't have to wind up in your kayak and set the hook and worry about flipping the boat when you do it. This way, you just reel down, you just drop your rod tip, reel down until the line's tight, and then lift the rod tip up, and the hook sets itself every time, the corner of the mouth. Barbless circle hook, it pins them perfectly. Then 99% of the time, they never get off. 99% of the time, they're hooked right in the corner of the mouth. So we were handing out little kits with those things went fast, I'll tell you. Thank you. I had a good relationship there with Gary Yamamoto for a while there, so I was well stocked with some Senkos. So but they were popular, man. I gave away a lot of Senkos.
Well, they work, right? Like at the end of the day, they work. I've said this before about all of these baits that we use that are tried and tested over the years. A Senko is no different than a Daredevil. It may not have been around as long as a Daredevil, but they work. A MEPS 5 Agalia, great for pike and a whole bunch of species. But these baits, they work then, they work now, and they'll probably work long into the future.
I agree. And if you have a young child that wants to catch their first bass, right, and they don't understand the necessity to watch their line 100% of the time, to set the hook every time it jumps or moves before the bass swallows that hook and gets it engorged in the esophagus there. They don't understand that. And then if that happens to them and there's some bleeding and the fish looks stressed or dies, that could be a turnoff for fishing right off the bat, right? So by promoting these circle hooks, it's they get a clean release. They don't have to deal with any of that. If they're not paying attention, which kids often aren't, especially as the Senko's sinking down, right? And they just, cast it out, let it sink down, and just wait until your line starts to move. They can do that, and they're not going to hurt the fish. And so I think that was a good one. We were also giving out a little kit with a very small 1/16 ounce non-lead split shot, and a number 10 non-offset circle hook as well, right? So number 10 non-offset circle hook. That's a pretty tiny circle hook.
It's a very tiny, that's a trout hook.
Wow. But it also works for panfish under a bobber.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, right? Again, the bobber will almost do the work, right? The bobber will almost do the work. The panfish comes, takes it, swims, pulls down, swallows it. The bobber, even if the kid doesn't notice their bobber's down, when they finally notice it and they start to reel in, that circle hook gets perfectly caught in the corner of the panfish mouth, not down the throat. Like, how many times have we gone, okay, kids, don't look, I got to go in here and get this hook way down inside the sunfish's throat here, and then the fish goes back and it's upside down and there's blood on your hands. Again, you avoid all that. And so that, we gave away tons of those. And the other thing we're giving away was some drop shot rigs, with a nice number 2 hook, non-offset, and a non-lead weight, right, and a bait. So we said, look, this is a good way too for people new to fishing. Drop shot works on everything. It works on walleye, it works on bass. You can catch just about anything on a drop shot rig, right? So it's a good way to get people new to fishing. So these 3 rigs were flying off my table. I had our employees sitting beside me making new rigs as we were running out, and that was a lot of fun. We were going to have a casting zone outside, and I have a 60-foot blue, nice shiny blue tarp, that I pinned down on the ground, and I put some structure on it, some stumps, some grass, and some rocks, and then I put some little fish silhouettes in there. And I said, look over there by the rocks. You see the smallmouth bass or the largemouth over by the log and the pike over there in the weeds. I said, cast to it. So they're actually casting to fish, not over top of them. I said, don't cast past them. There's no point catching the fish on the other side of the log because you're not going to get it in. You got to bring it over the log. That's never going to happen. But we couldn't do it outside because there was too much smoke. So we brought the whole thing inside and we adjusted and we taught these kids how to flip.
It's the guy who at the time was probably wearing dark glasses, who is really blind. Go cast over at that rock. Go cast over at that log. I don't know how
I did it. I was doing pretty good. Like I said, I had to teach these. I had 2 youth who were teaching the casting zones. So they showed up an hour early, and I had to teach them how to flip with a push button rods and spinning rods, right? I was going to bring a bait caster, and I said, no, that's just pushing it. That's just not going to work. The bait caster it'll be bird nest within 5 minutes. So
100%.
So even one of the young guys, I had 2 16-year-olds. First thing he does, he flips it up in the air around the rafters, 15 feet up in the air around the rafters, and then so we have to get that down. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is not going to go well. But it did go well. And I said, look, I said, you know why we do this, teach this kind of fishing? Because this is what the pros do. I said, put a cup out there in the middle of the target, and then they got really excited, the two young guys, and they were aiming for that cup, and they were getting really close. So that got them really psyched up about pitching. And I said, this is precision fishing, and this is, teaching kids about fish habitat and where to find different fish and where to cast and where not to cast. It's not just a casting competition to see how far you can get or ring a bell or something. This is really about, precision fishing. So that went really well. So we had about an hour and a half in the morning where we did this, and then we did a Q&A session in the auditorium. And then we had a lot of questions about conservation type issues, like
Cool.
what happened to the perch, what about the levels in the St. Lawrence River going up and down with the flooding and everything. There's lots of questions about.
And were the
people
majority of
concerning.
these questions coming from adults, or were the kids asking them too?
Yeah, the kids were asking too. The kids were definitely asking about the fish and the health of the fish and what's happening to the fish from the invasive species and so on. And what do the gobies, how are they impacting the fish? So, I talked about it. Anyways, I'm not going to get into the answers here now, but it went really well. And of course, I have the dam people there. And so no one asked any questions about American eels, thank goodness, because eels and dams don't get along.
Yeah.
But a lot about water level. There was a lot about water level, but the OPG doesn't control water level so much. They're told what to do, by another board in terms of opening and closing the dams to regulate water levels in the various rivers and such. So
100%.
we talked about the importance of wetlands and keeping those wetlands wet, especially in the spring, so fish can successfully complete their spawn. And I said, that's the biggest problem these days is our wetlands. We're just losing wetlands. And when they have to lower the river so much to move water out, all the wetlands dry out. And that's a problem.
Yeah. And from what Luke is saying, they were enamored by your personal name tag.
Oh,
Written in Braille, I heard.
well, you know what I did? Someone told me we're doing autograph cards. And I said, you know what? I should just do Braille autograph cards, and not my name, but I'll put the kid's name on there in Braille. So as soon as they come, they don't know I'm blind, and then I tell them, or they figure it out, and then they're freaked out. So I said, look, I don't see, but you know what? I'm going to write your name in Braille, and I explain to them what Braille is: 6 dots. Any combination of 6 dots is a Braille letter, And then I punch out their name in Braille. They spell it to me. I show it. I said, look, if you close your eyes and touch those dots, that's how I read. But I said, you don't need to. You can just look at the dots with your eyes. And then flip the card over, and I've got the whole alphabet explained, letter by letter with the combination of dots right beside it. So I said, now you know the code. You can send messages to your friends, your brothers and sisters, and you got a secret code no one will understand. So they love it, and it breaks the ice. It gets rid of that 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is I'm blind. And then I said, okay, well, we talk about fishing. And then it's all, totally cool. All right, we're talking about fishing and, about touch and feeling the bite and all that stuff. And, rigs and all that. So we get past that. And you know what? It's shameless advertising for Bluefish Canada because, we've been doing these Braille cards for years. And a lot of times when you're at outdoor shows and you give people stuff, stickers and brochures and things, and then you walk away from your booth and you walk down the aisle and you see all your stuff just laying on the floor, right? People look at it and toss it. Yeah. Or in a garbage can, or leave it on other people's tables. We never see our Braille cards lying around anywhere. And quite often we get parents coming back the next year and say, my daughter lost her Braille card. She'd like another one. Can you do another one for my daughter, please? And they keep things around. And it's got all the information about Bluefish Canada there. So it's advertising marketing that lasts, that endures the test of time. So it's fun. And the kids, it's just another thing the kids take away with them. They get the shoreline cleanup kits. They get all the fish ID cards. They get rigs. They're walking away with a lot of booty when they leave our tables and stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
That's very
165.
Cool.
165.
160. That is that's an impressive number.
Yeah.
Moose is wondering, you didn't give that shirt away to every kid as well, did you? He loves your shirt.
Oh yeah. I wore this shirt to the fish scale thing tonight at the Native Center, and I was walking in to give my name to register. The Native woman behind the table goes, "Oh, nice shirt," and then she realizes I'm blind. She goes, "With all this and that and the other thing," because I don't even know what shirt I'm wearing. My wife picked it out for me, right? So then she starts naming it, and she goes, "Oh, camping," and I said, "Where do you go camping?" She goes, She goes, "Oh, Crownland, we just stopped the car and walk into the bush." That's cool. I love that. I was going to say, yeah, we look for an RV park and park our trailer and hook it up to the electricity and the water and the sewage. That's my camping these days. But anyways, there you go. There's still people out there just pushing into the bush with their bare necessities and enjoying it. And that's sometimes simple is better.
That's what it's all. And really, simple is better. I completely agree. We got time for one more if you have one, Lawrence.
Yeah. So look. So, okay, invasive species inflict $3.8 billion of damage to the Canadian economy every year. $3.8 billion of economic damage. This is rivaling, this is one below, extreme weather events. If you add up the cost of all the extreme weather events, climate change type damage. Right after climate change comes invasive species. So if you want to do something, if you have a community, an organization, a nonprofit, a school, someone who wants to do something about removing invasive species in the community, contact the Invasive Species Center and send in an application. You can get up to $2,000 to do an event to remove invasive species. I think this is super important.
Yep, absolutely. Great message as always. Lawrence, you have had a busy day. We're really glad that you managed to fit us in. You have always a wealth of information. What have you got upcoming in Bluefish Canada and Bluefish Radio this week?
Well, I just got contacted by Outdoor Canada magazine. They were wondering how many of the podcasts have I released so far on the proposed National Marine Conservation Area for the Eastern Basin of Lake Ontario. I've done 8 interviews. I've released 4. I've got 4 that I'm still waiting to release. I'm waiting for, to find out if they're still interested in doing this. Yeah. And but I think Outdoor Canada is looking to get me to do an article on the state of this activity. And I won't give it away, but I was talking to Bob Sexton and just about what I learned from talking to these 8 different experts from various aspects of the commercial, recreational, and science and all of that. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, there's room for improvement, man. And I'm talking about a total underutilized fishery. Underutilized. And that's pretty much the consensus from most of the experts and people with their feet in the water, the scientists, the experts, the fishers. It's underutilized, and we should be doing a lot more to utilize that fishery, to promote the fishery, and to make it part of our culture and really celebrate that and make part of tourism too, right? We're not doing enough. We're not leveraging that enough.
I could not agree more. And that's why we do this. And that's why we have you 3 on here to further the passion, to make us a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to fishing, whether it's us ourselves out fishing, or maybe we're passing that knowledge on to others that we meet along the way. As always, my friend Lawrence, I can't thank you enough for spending yet another Monday with us. And keep up the great work, dude.
You too, Scotty. Thanks for having me on, and thanks you guys for giving me a few minutes here to say these words. I appreciate it. And spread the message, man. Yeah. This
podcast in its entirety is available on Bluefish Radio. Mm-hmm. Make sure you go over to bluefishradio.ca and click on the link. Or, as you said, you could Google it, or you can even ask Alexa to find out what the latest Bluefish Radio publication is.
Yeah, and it'll play it right there on your speaker over your phone, and you can do it while you're doing the dishes.
Right on, buddy.
Or make barbecue or whatever. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Lawrence. As always, dude, you have yourself a great week, and thanks again, my friend.
Cheers, buddy.
Right on. Jay Barnucz after a word from his sponsor.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Yes, they can.
What's happening?
Jay, it's always a pleasure, my friend. I know you've been busy. You're still busy looking for boat parts and various other things to get this research underway and keep our summer students busy. You ran into a bit of a snag. I heard you were on the prowl for a certain fitting or two.
Oh yeah, that's always how it goes. I was joking with the staff today that even the best laid plan, you miss one piece, you're missing one component, and it can kibosh the entire plan. So that's how it goes, and that's kind of how the job goes some days, where it's been a bit of a rough year, but we're getting through it, and I think everyone's learning a little bit about problem solving, a little bit about planning, which is all part of the job anyways. So catching fish is a very small part of my job. A lot of it is logistics and planning. That's probably the biggest part. So how we're going to get in there, what we're going to use, and this year we're doing works on rivers, wetlands, streams, all over. So every location has different needs, different requirements, different gear, different skill sets. So it's all part of the job. All good.
100%. And it puts a smile on our face when you do that work, and all of it basically under the watchful eye of none of us, only those who are involved. But, when you do that other thing, which is being a dad and an angler dad, and with Father's Day coming up this weekend,
What do you got, Stephen?
like this puts us face, I'll tell you.
Big carp. There you go.
She is so proud of that.
What do you got? What do you got, Stephen?
Yeah, man. It's great that there's no denying that Trevor's got the fishing bug, but
what do you got? What do you got?
Watching him share it with Stephanie, and that particular fish was neat because Mom and Dad were nowhere to be found. We were miles from that location. Trevor,
no way.
Yeah, Trevor took his sister there, taught her how to catch a carp, took a video, and took a picture of her. That was all Trevor's doing. That's all him in that photo, in that sequence there, Scotty. That's one of my favorite sequences in recent memory, right there. And I had nothing to do with it.
I love the two. That's why I wanted to share it.
Yeah.
It as I said, makes us smile to know that the next generation is looking after each other when it comes to doing what we're doing, and what we do every Monday, which is educate and try and further that passion for angling.
A lot of people ask us about the kids and about their passion for fishing, and I'll talk about Stephanie for a second, because I think Stephanie's actually the atypical angler, where she loves angling, she loves catching fish, she loves about spending time with family in the outdoors and enjoying it from that respect. She's not into marathon days of 10, 12, 14-hour days of fishing or driving. She just really takes it in tidbits and enjoys it that way. And I think she really rings home about, she is the epitome of the average angler. You want to get out, catch some fish, enjoy yourself. You don't need to be out all that time, and I think that honestly, I'm very proud of her for that. And I think she reminds us some days of, like, you don't have to be a diehard to enjoy it, and I think there's a lesson to be said there.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well said. One thing that I did want to bring to your attention, it goes back to the science and what you have when it comes to the ability to pass on questions that folks may have, or they've thought about but never had the guts to ask. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons, but Ivano, he was sharing this, and I couldn't think of anybody better to share this with than yourself. He's been out, I don't know how many times, but let's say the last 2 weeks. Ivano, who's a longtime CFNer, and he's out on the Credit River a lot, has been hooking into these quite regularly, and to the point where he's a little concerned that he might not be doing enough to eradicate the invasive species. And of course, we have to be careful that it is the invasive species that we're catching. So there's a whole host, and I'm going to let you take it from there.
Yeah, so let's talk about sea lamprey first and how they're managed. And I'm not a sea lamprey expert, but I'm familiar with sort of the general management of them in the Great Lakes. So there's the Sea Lamprey Center, Control Center in Sault Ste. Marie is actually a collaborative between Canada and the U.S. And they have a huge office in the Sioux. And the way Sea Lamprey manages, the way the center manages lamprey across the Great Lakes. So picture the Great Lakes themselves. Like, you have a massive geographic area. You're talking from Thunder Bay all the way over to Cornwall, right? And then all the U.S. waters too. So all of it is monitored. they actually send out dozens of crews every year, monitoring crews. What the monitoring crews do is they go out and typically they're using electrofishing, and actually the electrofishing, the backpacks they're using have a unique voltage that's dialed into lamprey. If you use a typical backpack shocker on lamprey, it won't work. You have to use an extremely low voltage and a high frequency to get them to come out of the mud, because they're looking mostly for the amicetes, the larvae of the lamprey. They're not usually looking for the adults. And I'll tell you why. What they're looking for is over time, as lamprey spawn and the amicetes form, and the amicetes burrow in the mud for a period of time, usually up to years, they can actually look at the densities of the young lamprey, and they can look at it and determine which rivers have the highest sea lamprey numbers, or likely to have the highest sea lamprey numbers. Then those rivers are treated to kill the sea lampreys, because you can't treat every river. The cost is astronomical and the staffing is too high. So my understanding is they do the assessment crews are kind of everywhere. The treatment crews are not everywhere, but they will target specific areas based on their sampling. And so that video there of the credit, for example, what I would recommend is, and I put a link in the chat, you can reach out to the Invasive Species Center, and there's actually, if you click on that link, there's a little bit of there's a link in the bottom of that page about what can I do? And there's actually phone numbers you can call, and I think there's an email address where you can request information or ask questions. So the Invasive Species Center, for example, this video here, if it's shared with them, they can then share that with the Sea Lamprey Control Center. And I'm not sure what they would do with that video, but I know that they would likely follow up if they know that location and be like, okay, let's flag this, and maybe we'll send our assessment crews out there this year to assess the potential density of animals at that location or in that river reach, and then see if it to see then at that point, does it require treatment? June is prime lamprey spawning time, prime sea lamprey spawning time. So right now, if you go to walk Ganaraska Creek, Bowmanville Creek, I'm thinking all the Lake Ontario trips especially, they are notorious for having lots of sea lamprey in June. I know historically myself in my job, doing work on those cold water tributaries, there's lots of lamprey in those systems this time of year. This is their prime spawning period, and that's what we see there is basically a prime spawning period of lamprey in the Credit River. So now there are ways to control lamprey that aren't involving the Sea Lamprey Control Center. We have dams, we have barriers that keep lamprey out. Coburg Creek is an example where they can't get above those barriers on Coburg, but below Coburg, there's lots. I see Steve's comment there. Like, yeah, it is prime right now for sea lamprey. So I'm not surprised to see numbers like that. I know I'm very familiar with Bowmanville Creek because I've fished there a lot and I've worked in that area before. And I've seen numbers like that in Bowmanville Creek from time to time at the right time of year. It's a very short-lived spawning run. It's no different than like steelhead in the spring, but that's what sea lampreys do right now. They're up spawning. So yeah, but yeah, I would reach out to the species information or the Invasive Species Center, and they will direct that information to those that are interested. Absolutely.
And of course, we could talk about how they treat them. Tony's saying they spray chemicals on the St. Mary's River, which is a huge tributary that has had a lot of barriers implemented within that system for obvious reasons. But it's interesting that, and I didn't draw the parallel here. So George has said that the sea lamprey numbers are up right now because of limited control and monitoring efforts during COVID restrictions.
Yep, it's true.
That sucks
because crews couldn't go out, right? So I've always said people this about invasive species. Once they're here, they're here. If you want to control them, you have to stay on top of them. Like it won't. Like if we stop controlling sea lamprey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we will probably set the Great Lakes fisheries back decades in a very short order if we don't stay on top of them. And this George's quote there is really key because it shows the value of that sea lamprey control program. If we don't have them, if they're not out there doing their job, like let's look back on the recent wildfires in Ontario, right? When there's government cuts, what's the first thing that's cut? Natural resources management.
Natural resources. Yeah, I was just
All
going to
the
say,
time.
always the case. Yeah.
Right. So our current government cut basically 2 or 3 years ago, cut the, I read a number somewhere like 60% of the forest fire budget was cut 3 years ago.
Yep.
And like, yeah, there's some years forest fires aren't that bad, but look, right now we need forest firefighters out there, and we don't have them. And
And then we're going to other countries to seek them, and I can't imagine what we're paying for that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we're paying for that, or I know that we've sent firefighters to other countries to help when they've needed it. So maybe there's some back scratching going on, which I hope is what's happening.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, yeah, we got to be very careful how much we cut. Just to save a buck, we could be costing literally thousands of dollars of property damage, human health. And we're not just talking smoke inhalation. I'm actually talking like, I actually, if anyone in the past 2 weeks has not thought about folks living in northern Canada, like Scotty, I was out last week working, and it was last Tuesday in Burlington. I thought I was sitting by a campfire on Tuesday at noon. And it made me think about all my friends who live in northern areas where they have forest fires regularly. I couldn't imagine living through a forest fire, and never mind having my home destroyed or that, just living in that plume of smoke for weeks on end. I couldn't imagine. And we got just a taste of it, like literally a taste of it.
I would have to say that the most awe-shocking photos came from New York, and not just because of the density of the smoke, but how many people were affected by that smoke.
Wild, right?
It truly is wild. It's incredible that something that happens that far away can still affect people. Like it's like you said, like you were in the fire, or it was your next door neighbor's backyard. It was incredible.
So that brings us back to sea lamprey. Like if we don't keep that money going in sea lamprey, we will lose that. And George's points are, to me, bang on. We lost a bunch of time for lamprey management because of COVID, and we probably have to get things back on track. And they know that, but it doesn't happen overnight. So we're seeing probably we're probably going to see for the next 3 to 4 years higher concentrations of sea lamprey in some water bodies. That's my guess.
So, having said that, we need to do a better job of making sure folks can identify the species. For instance, Steve chimed in here. He said he caught one that was purple.
Yeah.
Is there some identifying marks on a lamprey that we should look for?
So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a picture here, and I hope it comes out okay. So the issue is that sea lamprey. There's actually native lampreys in Ontario, and sea lamprey look like some of the native species. And I'm going to try and show this here. Okay. So this is a field guide. That's a sea lamprey there, right there. This guy right here. Okay. And you can see how the two dorsal fins are split? They're separated. Okay. Yeah. And sea lamprey also have a parasitic. Their parasitic mouth. They have teeth, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to jump down to here. Let me see. Yeah, right here. So this guy up here, that's a silver lamprey. And you can see here, the dorsal fin is not separated. There's a little bit of a lobe connecting those two. Yeah. And that's really the key. They both have a parasitic mouth, but the sea lamprey, the dorsal fin has 2 separate dorsal fins. The silver lamprey has one dorsal fin, has a bit of a lobe, but it is connected between those two. The other 2 native ones right here, so we have Northern Brook and American Brook, they actually are non-parasitic. Their mouth is very tiny and is non-parasitic. But silver lamprey is one that shows up, and I see them pretty, not common. They are a species of special concern in Canada. They are at risk because they're not that abundant. But in a lot of the connecting waters, like the St. Clair River, Detroit River, and the St. Lawrence River, especially out towards Cornwall, silver lamprey, and their cousin, the chestnut lamprey, which genetically are almost identical. The two of them, they're not at risk, and they're a native species. The issue, though, is that a lot of folks, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's not easy. When you try to grab a hold of a lamprey in your hand, the first thing it wants to do is attach itself to you. That's literally. So I grab it by the back of the head and I squeeze it like a small northern pike, okay, which are the worst ones to handle. If anyone's handled them, they know what I'm talking about. So hold it, squeeze it firmly, and then try and stretch that tail out to see with your other hand to see what is it, one lobe or two lobes. So if it's got teeth and a parasitic mouth and that dorsal fin has two distinct lobes, that's a sea lamprey. And typically you don't see silvers and chestnuts aggregating, like spawning. Like there's just not that many of them out there. But the silver lamprey and the chestnut lamprey will get to be as long as a sea lamprey. I've seen some of them pushing 15 to 17 inches, which is the same as a sea lamprey. Now, sea lamprey can get up to be close to 2 feet long, some of them. But a lot of those adults that you're seeing, especially in that video, they're probably around 12 inches to about 18 inches at maximum size. And they get different colors. Steve's right. I've seen them purple. If anyone's seen gobies when they're spawning, they get that sort of purpley black color.
Yeah.
Sea lampreys get like that, but they're also not all like that. And that video shows some of the different color variation in those lamprey. So, I think it's more of an awareness. I think for the most part, the lampreys people are seeing are sea lamprey.
Yeah.
But it's good to be aware that there are other species out there, and we don't go whacking them. It's like, what's that old Simpsons episode, Whacking Day, when all the snakes come to town and they all go around whacking, right? They all have the baseball bats and they're all whacking them, and then Lisa and Bart convince Barry Manilow? I forget what singer comes. Barry White comes in.
Barry White, yes.
Barry White comes in and sings to the snakes, right? Oh, we love the snakes, and yeah, all that. So Whacking Day reminds me of lampreys, because not all lampreys are bad. So I always think of that Whacking Day episode of The Simpsons.
So now squeeze the head, pull the dorsal fin, make sure it's got that gap. Try not to get latched on. And the one thing that I said to Ivano when I looked at the videos, thank the Lord he's got waders on. I can't imagine what your leg would look like wading around in water like that with those things swimming.
I have some photos somewhere of old Polaroids of young fisheries techs, back in the early 90s that worked with me. Like we were all the same age then. These weren't students. We were all students back then. And they'd stick them on their face, like just for a second for a picture, and like let it kind of hang down, like, oh, look at this. And then I know a couple of them that had to go get one fell off and left like a hickey on the guy's cheek for a week, and the other guy got an infection because he kept it on for too long. Like they'll start to burrow into that flesh pretty fast. They are pretty efficient, I will say that. So I don't think they would latch on to your bare skin like on wader legs, but either way, I'm very careful about handling lampreys. They're not easy to handle. They're a lot harder to handle than a northern pike. I know I made that comparison. Picture a pike that's 5 times as slimy and 5 times as wiggly, and it's hard. It is hard.
Nope. Yeah. As Steve said, nope, not a chance. And Jay, yeah, I'm right with you. Now, when it comes to removing them from the water body, depending on the situation that you're in, you can bring a 5-gallon pail if you anticipate catching them to take them with you. If you're in a boat, the same can suffice. The only thing I want to make sure that we're informing the folks to do you kill them right on the spot?
So there's some gray area here, and I don't know the right answer to give you, Scotty, but I'm going to throw some scenarios at you. I would. So part of me says, okay, yeah, just bring them home, bury them in your garden. But you can't be caught having lamprey in a bucket or a live well because you're transporting invasive species, right? In theory, you should bonk them and bury them on the riverbank. That's probably the best thing to do. I know a lot of folks just take like gobies and sea lamprey and throw them up in the bushes. I'm not going to condone that because, man, that just makes an awful mess in some places. Like I can remember years ago going down to like Port Dover Pier here, and it's just literally a slime coat of dead gobies because everyone's doing their part to kill the gobies. But yeah, it's a tough one, Scotty. I'm not 100% sure what to do if you catch a sea lamprey. If you kill it, fine. But yeah, there's not a right answer. That's the issue. I think the answer is to bury it at shore where you are, but not all of us carry a shovel around, right? So
I'll tell you what, I would say probably the best answer would be to ask the folks that are in the know.
Yeah.
Sea Lamprey Center. This is the link if you are finding yourself in situations where you're coming across them. And we're not here to judge. At the end of the day, what you do with them is kind of your business, and you have to own it. But if you want the right answer, reach out to these folks.
And I think for most people, they're not like, they might see the lamprey. Like Steve said, there's lots of lamprey in Cobra Creek.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's not down there like grabbing them and throwing them on the bank either. Like that's a lot of us will see them, but we're not going to take action. We might report it, which is probably a good idea, but we're not going to take action. So yeah, I'm curious what they would say, but I know that you don't want to be caught transporting invasive species. You don't want to be caught transporting fish, period, without a proper permit. And your fishing license doesn't count as a proper permit to transport fish over land. 100%. So, and I know anglers have gotten in trouble, like in derbies, for example, where they catch a bass and they want to transport it to the weigh-in site alive. So they keep it in a cooler in the back of their pickup, and then they get pulled over by M&R. Whereas if the fish is dead, it's fine, but they wanted to keep it alive to release it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's such a tough spot.
And it's even worse now because the last thing you are asked to do is to remove any water and bring it with you wherever you launch and ramp your boat up. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Traveling with water from a water body is a huge no-no.
But let's talk about something more fun, Scott.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So I'm gonna share a picture here with so that's Trevor on the weekend. We went up to visit Darren Ford at Doss King. This is in Aurelia. And now Darren is not the tallest person, so he's actually standing in a kayak there between Trevor and I, because Trevor's pushing 6 foot and I'm 6'3". So Darren's like, if we're gonna do a picture, guys, I gotta stand on something here, so I'm not looking at your belly buttons. So anyway, so Darren's there, and Darren. So I bought a Doss King kayak last year and loved it, and spent a lot of days on it last year on the water. Like I think literally 50 some odd days if I think back. Is that right? And so Trevor's, with Darren's help, he's going to be on a Doss King, and even Darren made him a nice Doss King jersey there. So Trevor's going to be representing Doss King kayaks, and we actually it's funny, Scotty. In my job last week, I drove from Dunnville to Welland, Welland to Dunnville, Dunnville back to Burlington, Burlington to Collingwood. Worked in Collingwood for 2 days. Drove between Collingwood and Port Elgin a couple times. Turned around, went home. Saturday morning, woke up, drove to Aurelia, and then drove to Collingwood to pick up a kayak, and then drove back on Saturday. So I put a lot of miles on myself in the past couple of weeks. But I'm going to show you one more picture if I can find it, because I really want to. Do I have it here? Yeah, I got it here. Because Darren has been so great. And, he does so much, Scotty. Like, he's not just good to me. He is good to just in general, like the fishing community. The guy gives so much to the fishing community. I know he's a huge proponent of Ontario women anglers. He's donated a lot of kayaks to their different causes. There's Trevor. So this is at Golden Triangle or GT Paddle Sports in Collingwood. Okay. This is where Darren's based out of. That's Trevor's new red rocket, and we'll do some picture reveals of it in the next week or so as we get it rigged up. But he sells paddle boards, Doss King fishing kayaks, regular kayaks if you just want to go kayaking. He'll even set you up if you want to go to his shop. They're right by Georgian Bay. Like the water is literally a couple hundred yards to the back of the photo there. And yeah, you go water test one. They're great up there, and the service is incredible. I got to say, I've been very impressed. And you know, I didn't expect to be a kayak angler, like I keep saying, but I really enjoy it. It's a great fraternity. And now I got Trevor into a DOS King too. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's awesome, and I'm very happy for Trevor for that. So
And it looks like a very stable craft. The one thing that, you know, folks may have a little bit of apprehension about getting in one
yeah,
is how unstable they are. And I've seen TikToks and all kinds of videos
Yeah.
out there having guys standing on the trolling motor at the front of it's very, very stable. It's surprising.
yeah, it's so those kayaks. What we're fishing out of is a DOS King Kratos. So they're a 13-foot kayak. They're actually about 100 pounds. So they're not the smallest kayaks out there. We actually transported on a double wide boat trailer. So we have two kayaks side by side.
Mhm.
We don't launch them in the water on the trailer, but we just use the trailer to transport them. I'm telling you, like, okay, I full confession, I don't stand in my kayak. I don't like standing in a kayak. It's not my thing. But Trevor stands in his kayak all the time. He's 6 feet tall. He's 150 pounds. So he's little skinny. But dude, he stands in it. He flips a jig. He works a jerk bait in a kayak. Like it's just like a boat for him. And I know a lot of anglers who stand in their kayaks. I just choose not to. So I've never had an issue in a kayak. Like people ask me all the time, are you scared of flipping? No. In fact, most incidents with kayaks, Scotty, are not the kayaks flipping over. It's anglers reaching too far. They end up rolling out of the kayak and the kayak stays fine. What I encourage anglers to do is to practice getting back into a kayak. If you're scared of it,
100%.
go put the kayak in your buddy's pool, put your PFD on, and practice getting in and out of a kayak. That is honestly the best way to cure yourself of that fear. You know, but yeah, they're super stable. And I don't like inflatable life jackets. I've said on the show before, I prefer a foam PFD. I just find that they are more reliable than an inflatable. I like inflatables when I'm in the boat, but in a kayak, I like that foam PFD better. And I like the pockets in the storage, actually. It's like a tackle box on you. So yeah, so we'll be doing some more kayak fishing. But dude, I want to actually take a couple minutes here to talk about a couple things I got going on.
Okay.
One is I've been very fortunate for many years to work with Tim Hine over at Raw Fish, and he actually gave me a sweet hat, which I'm wearing right now. Tim's been around in the fishing industry for years. The Raw Fish brand started as almost like a Wired to Fish, but kind of an Ontario version. Tim did a lot of fishing tips videos, YouTube videos, did tons of outreach with like Bassmasters. He went down to the Classic a bunch of times. And then he got into the apparel business, and he's been doing the apparel thing for many years. I've been a big supporter of Tim's. I'm not a pro staff or nothing like that, but Trevor's working on some projects with Tim on TikTok, because Trevor loves TikTok. I'm not big on TikTok. I will say that probably even a lot of even Tim himself is like, I want Trevor to do TikTok. I don't want to be involved on TikTok, but TikTok is a big thing right now for a lot of certain demographics of young people, right? So
Honest, yep.
So in that link there, if you want to purchase some Raw Fish stuff, it's honestly, dude, it's quality stuff. Like I'm hard on my clothes, man, but Tim has all original designs. He does an awesome job of it. And actually, what I love about his hats is they're full back hats. Yeah. I love a full back hat. My head does not fit well in a trucker cap. Never has. So I love, now they get a little hot. I got some sweaty ones that I use for cutting grass and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, man, I love a full back hat, and Raw Fish has done a good job. And I know on this show we have lots of apparel companies, and I love the fact that we promote these sort of homegrown Ontario apparel companies that are fishing related. So I'm just going to give a plug in for Tim out there. And one other plug I want to give out, because I didn't get a chance to last week, is this is one that's really near and dear to my heart. It's the 2023 Long Point Bay Big Bass Derby. And if you go to the link, you can see where you can buy tickets. It's $10 to get a ticket. The way the Big Bass Derby works, it's been going on for close to 40 years, Scotty. 40-year event. It's a derby. Catch and release is promoted. It's not mandatory. So on opening day of bass season on Saturday, June 24th, it's out of Turkey Point, Ontario. You can buy your tickets at like any tackle retailer or marina around Long Point Bay. And we'll have anglers out, volunteers at boat ramps on the opening day, selling tickets at $10. And if you catch a big fish, you could bring it in. Typically, the top 10 fish are usually 4 pounds and better. Usually the winning fish. The winning fish, smallmouth bass and largemouth bass, 2 categories. Winning fish is $1,000 cash for that derby. And then we have prizes, not so much payouts, but a lot of prizes down to the top 10. A lot of great sponsors donating prizes to us. So I just want to give a shout out to the Big Bass Derby. I'll be on stage this year helping to MC it and weigh fish. And Trevor and his friend Owen, they're actually we're not going to fish opening day. Trevor and his friend are going to help us on stage with helping them with the weights and running fish. Because although some fish are kept, I'm not going to beat around the bush because people have a right to eat. These are like, picture like a salmon derby, Scotty, or a walleye derby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but the Long Point Bay Anglers live release boat will be on site. And I'm going to say over the last few years, probably 60 or 70, probably closer to 70% of the fish are released alive. There are a few that are allowed to keep them. That's fine. It's their privilege and their right as an Ontario resident, but definitely we encourage live release. So yeah, it's a great event. And my proceeds, so the clubs that are involved are Long Point Bay Anglers and Erie Bassmasters. The 2 clubs do keep a little bit of the money to help pay for expenses of the event and things like that. But every year we make a big donation to a local charity. Last year it was the Norfolk General Hospital Foundation. In years past, it's been the local carrying cupboards. Like we donate thousands over the last few years to different local charities. So we're not sure who our local charity is this year, but we will announce that and deliver on that. And it's usually, we try to pick a charity that's vocally recently have said, we got some hard times and then we want to help them out. And it's all local. So
that's awesome. So,
yeah, man.
Now, are kayakers, can they be involved in this derby?
No, so this is not a kayak friendly one yet, but we're working on it. I'm actually working with a couple of groups. I don't want to give anything away, but I'm working with a couple of groups to try and bring some kayak events to Long Point Bay. I think Long Point Bay has a lot of potential for hosting some kayak tournaments. The kayak tournaments are growing. There's the Ontario Kayak Bass Trail. There is the Ontario Kayak Bassmasters. There's a few other groups out there. And I'd like to see that we have an opportunity here to grow it a bit more in southwestern Ontario. They've had some events on Rondo, some events on Lake St. Clair. So I think Long Point Bay is a natural fit for kayak fishing tournaments. So maybe next year we'll have that because all we'd have to do is actually have an online system for the kayak anglers to register their fish online. So they wouldn't have to bring the fish we could have a kayak division, which I've been thinking about, but maybe for next year we'll try that. And I'll probably run it past the organizers the day of the event when we're there. So hopefully.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to provide some assistance with that. We do have something in the works that we will be sharing in the near future, but very, very cool. I have a question. Jay is asking about inflatables. He had heard that they could not be used in a yak. It's actually illegal. Is that true?
No. Not that I'm aware of. I believe that they are completely legal in a kayak. In fact, I know a lot of anglers who use them in a kayak almost exclusively. So, yeah. Jay brings up a good point. So, if the sensor gets wet, can cause it to inflate. When you're in a kayak, you pretty much have to have one of the hydrostatic ones, which will only go off if you're submerged. Like it's a pressure sensor. So it has to be submerged for, I think it's like 3 to 4 seconds, because the other ones are there's the pull one, right? And then those ones aren't that great because if you get whacked in the head, you can't pull it, right? The other one is it's like an Alka-Seltzer tablet. So the pin the pin fires by the tablet dissolves and the pin shoots through and pierces the cartridge. But if that life jacket gets wet, and this is why I tell anglers, do not store your inflatables in your boat. Do not. They should come out of your boat every trip, put them in the garage, hang them on a hook, keep them dry. Do not shove them into a locker where it's damp, because they will go off. And nothing's going to frustrate you more than going to your boat in the morning and opening up your rod locker, or worse, when you need your life jacket, it's not there because it's already been inflated and it doesn't work right. So highly recommend taking care of your inflatables. But in a kayak, I think that a foam PFD is your best choice in a kayak. There's pros and cons. If you do hit your head, the foam may not necessarily keep you upright. The other thing I'll say about kayak fishing, which I think is important, don't fish alone in a kayak. Amen. You should go with friends.
Amen.
Some of the greatest tragedies in kayak fishing that I see, number one, is not wearing a PFD at all. I can't even believe the people that don't wear a PFD in a life jacket or a canoe. And the other one is I see anglers where we've had tragedies because they went out by themselves under questionable weather conditions and there wasn't someone there to help them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, and we haven't lost a lot of people, but we've lost, to lose one or two in our community is too many.
Amen.
So yeah, definitely wear your PFD and go out with friends. Fishing's supposed to be enjoyed with friends and family anyways. Take them with you when you go kayak fishing. I really couldn't see myself going kayak fishing by myself.
No,
so
couldn't
yeah,
agree more.
Yeah.
Jay, it's been a long show.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking around. Again, like, we are so lucky to have the three of you. You are all three just full of information, and you speak to us. That's the beautiful thing. The one thing that was said to me by folks who do watch, nobody speaks down to anyone. You're speaking at our level, and that's something that isn't mentioned enough, and we truly appreciate that, Jay.
Well, Scotty, before we go, I'm gonna close off with this. Thank God bass season's opening soon, because if I see one more picture of a bass on Facebook and I see one more comment for people like berating, whatever adjective you want to use, I am tired of it. Like, hey, if you want to fish for bass illegally, do what you want. Don't put it on Facebook. And the ones that are commenting, like, you're just flogging that dead horse. And I know there's people out there trolling pictures of bass just to get reaction.
Mm-hmm.
There's some Facebook groups. I'm reminded why I dislike so many Facebook groups. There's some great ones out there, but there are some awful ones. And the confusion will only get worse because Southern Ontario, only half the zones will open for bass this weekend coming. The other half will have to wait another week, but the half that I live in will probably think it's open because of all the pictures on social media. So hang on, folks. We got 2 more weeks, and we can just put all this bass pictures to rest. 2 more weeks. I'm gonna have to stay off the Facebook for 2 more weeks because and again, it's not seeing the fish pictures as much as it's the negativity of the bashing. Like, oh God, whatever, Scotty. But you know what I'm saying.
100%. And don't forget, as George reminds us,
yes,
is watching. Enforcement is always watching social media feeds.
They do. They watch a ton, and I try and I got tired of warning people, but it is true. That is a great warning, George, because they do watch. Some of the best COs I know are super active on social media, and they're using aliases, and you wouldn't even know it. That's all I'm going to say. They're out there looking. So good luck, everybody.
Right on, Jay. Well, thanks for that public announcement. Really appreciate it. And of course, all of those fan vids and fan journeys and fan memories. We love seeing the Barnucz is out fishing. So the more the merrier, dude. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Scotty. We'll see you guys next week.
Right on, Jay. Another full show. Needless to say, we went over the 2-hour mark. It's not often that we do that, but of course, I don't know where you begin to trim any of this. Needless to say, it was a wealth of information by both Jim, Lawrence, and Jay that has gotten us to this point. And of course, it's up to Dave Mercer to take us away. Outside of Tourney Tuesday tomorrow, and of course, all of the Trout Tuesday edits that Walt, myself, and Steve Shaw, who does the majority of them, please go to the Facebook page of Canadian Fishing Network, hit the message button or send a message. And if you have a picture that you want featured and it's not a bass or it's at least a legal bass, we do our homework. We love to see and share all of those family videos and family catches. We can't get enough. Outside of that, we will see you at Turkey Tuesday tomorrow and all of the spots and stops along the way. Dave, take us away, buddy. You guys have a great week. Love you all. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must